The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone. We'll start in a minute as more attendees arrive. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're connecting from. To introduce myself, I'm Shashidhar, and I'm a part of Citrix Ready technical team. So today we will talk about the best practices for your healthcare organization using the Citrix environments, and then we'll have a pretty detailed discussion about this. So today we have Andrew Parlett from Tricerat and our joint customer from Centracare. We have Matt Filippi, the presenters of this webinar, who will walk you through talking about this Tricerat products, how they use the Citrix products, and how our mutual customers are benefiting from this. So I hope everybody is doing good today, and thanks for taking your time for attending the webinar. I'd like to welcome you all to the Citrix Ready technical webinar series, where we showcase how Citrix and our partners have integrated to deliver the valuable products and solutions to common problems faced by our customers today. Next slide, please. Thank you. So to talk about Citrix Ready program, we're an end-to-end technology partner program. We showcase and we verify the third-party products. We verify the services and solutions to demonstrate their compatibility with our Citrix products. Now, customers can quickly and easily find the solutions recommended by Citrix at the catalog, which we call it as Citrix Ready Marketplace. You could navigate to citrixready.citrix.com and then search for the products which are verified as Citrix Ready. So for more information on the Citrix Ready program, you could navigate to citrix.com/partnerprograms/Citrix Ready. Next slide, please. Thank you. Now, we have seen like Citrix has recently evolved in towards cloud, and like most of the companies we are doing, so Citrix has already also moved to the cloud, and our entire workspace services portfolio is available in the form of Citrix Cloud Services. Now, these cloud services are readily available to consume. In most cases, all you need to do is just subscribe and activate them and use them. So the benefit to you is that the core infrastructure that you would typically have to install, manage, maintain, and upgrade yourself is now managed for you as a service by Citrix. The most companies are on a cloud journey and need a better way to provide their users with access to the apps, be it data and services they need, and probably in a better way for IT to provision, manage, and secure all of it. Now, it won't be much surprising to you that 90% of the companies are using the public cloud solutions these days, and with an average of about like 4 to 5 public cloud apps. And the projection is about like 52% of workloads will be in the cloud by next year, by 2020. And our Citrix, like we have made our cloud transformation into, it's like we have already begun that last year itself. So the cloud transformation isn't just about like making our independent products available as cloud services, but we also are unifying our products into an integrated portfolio of services more holistically that addresses the needs of today's hybrid and multi-cloud IT environments. So what this means for you is a better way to provide any service to any user in a simple, fast, secure, and adaptable way. Next slide, please. Thank you. So as I was mentioning, like Citrix virtual apps and desktops is a central component of Citrix Workspace, and it empowers how employees work and empowers businesses to operate in expanding in new ways. So as it's at its very core, if you think about centralizing your apps and desktops and then providing secure remote access from any device enables you to embrace BYOD or low cost endpoints. And this empowers your employees to work from anywhere. And this also eliminates a lot of headache of IT management and PC management and patching. And this gives more time to focus on more important IT initiatives. So Citrix virtual apps and desktops really empower your business to grow, to hire remote employees, to expand to branch offices anywhere in the world. So what I would say, like, please explore the Citrix Cloud Services and get a feel of it, how easy it is to use the virtualization environments. So with that said, before we start the presentation, if you have any questions during this webinar, please use the question panel on the right-hand side, and we will take your questions in the Q&A session at the end. So without any further delay, please welcome Andrew.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Andrew Parlett, CTO at Tricerat, and Tricerat has been around for over 20 years now. We were established in 1997, and pretty much from the beginning, we were Citrix partners and really developed products for the Citrix ecosystem, and have been close partners since in terms of really working on products and solutions that layer on top of the Citrix platforms and embrace and extend the technologies that are in place there to really enhance the administrator's job as far as making them more effective, more efficient, delivering a better value service out to users for these Citrix platforms, and then with the Tricerat solutions on top of that. So for most of those years, we've been focused on printing and different aspects of the user profile. So when a user is connecting into a session based on Citrix, be it a desktop or a virtual application, to manage what's happening in that session. And a big part of that is printing, as far as the printers that they get, and then from the applications printing and making sure that that's successful. So in 2001, we launched our screwdrivers product, which was our the first to the market virtual print driver technology, and has obviously really grown and evolved quite a bit over the years, which we'll really get into today, and expanded out into different types of printing, as far as client printing, network print server printing, direct IP, and mobile printing, and these sorts of things. So in this webinar, we'll certainly dive into some of that and how that really helps enhance the Citrix offering, but then also we'll have a focus here on healthcare, one of our big markets, as far as how these solutions can really make your virtual desktops and applications offerings even more efficient that way. So what makes us different? The print driver management is going to be a big thing that we'll talk about today, really greatly reducing the amount of time spent to manage those print drivers, and we'll talk about how we do that. Really increasing performance, and that's from the methods used to assign printers out and get them deployed to the users and to their applications. But even within the session, to be able to reduce the login times and to make the print servers more efficient, those are performance enhancements that we can bring to the table in these environments. And one of the real key differentiators is the advanced print features, which we'll demonstrate a little later on, where we can really deliver the best of both, from both the advantages of a virtual driver, but also give full functionality to the user, so that when a user logs into one of these virtual apps and gets a virtual printer, they have all the same access to printing that they would through a native environment. So we'll certainly dive into that. Our guest on the webinar today is a company, Centricare, a customer of both Tricerat and Citrix, and we have a VDI engineer, Matt Filippi. Matt, can you tell us a little bit about Centricare?
Sure. Centricare Health is a healthcare organization located in central Minnesota and consists of 6 hospitals, as well as senior living facilities, nearly a dozen clinics, and numerous specialty care services located throughout the region. We currently use Citrix Zen app for our EMR Epic system and other applications. We also use Zen Desktop for our VDI environment, which consists around 3,000 thin clients and growing. Tricerat is utilized for our printing solution in our VDI environment. It gives us the ability to centralize print management program.
Great. Okay, so we'll kind of overview the solutions a little bit, and then we'll come back to around to CentriCare and talk about specifically how they're using simplified printing within their healthcare environment effectively. So I also want to touch on our partnership with Citrix, and we were talking a little bit about this in the beginning as far as our Citrix partnership. Certainly, the Citrix Ready program is a big part of what we do for really aligning with the Citrix program and making sure our offerings are certified and available out to the Citrix ecosystem, and really adds on that value. And so this is a value-add product, so it's something that's being layered on top of the Citrix environment. So one of the things that I want to dive into right away is really, what is it about the solution that can really help bring return on investment, so that as you layer those things on top of Citrix, that you're really deriving the value back, and in some ways that you'll see factors morefold as far as the returns that you're going to get from that value. So we have some industry research that was done out there. This is kind of across industries and doing some averages across different platforms. But Quocirca did this kind of industry study and really started to unveil some of the real costs of printing, sometimes that administrators weren't even aware of. There's quite a bit to that when you start digging into that. And one of the things that they found was that for a given company, on average, it's between 1% and 3% of the total revenue that's actually spent on printing. So you imagine, sometimes quite large companies in these healthcare environments, and you take up to 3% of that, that could really be a lot of spend on printing. They also analyzed the help desk costs and the help desk tickets that are coming in, and they found that on average, 23% of help desk tickets are printing related. So that's nearly a quarter on average. So that could be a little higher or lower based on your environments. But those two numbers really start to indicate that there's really a lot of opportunity for, if we can bring some of those costs down, there's a real opportunity to really affect the bottom line by bringing in a print management solution that helps control these costs and the total spend of printing. They tried to break down the different areas that printing costs came from. About 5% is the hardware cost. We obviously all know that it costs to bring a printer into the environment and plug it in and do that kind of stuff. So that's something that's well understood on the budget line. Operating costs are usually understood. There's certainly consumables that are always identified, paper and ink and those sorts of things. Again, those are expenditures that are identified and managed. The infrastructure, power, network management, these sorts of things. But when we start getting into indirect cost, sometimes this is the area that's not really as visible as far as the costs that are involved in printing. We look at help desk and support cost, end user productivity. And these are areas where just having a user pick up the phone and call into the help desk about a printing problem, which might be a print job failing or the needing access to a new printer. This is time that the user is not being productive. They're on the phone with their help desk. You've got obviously the help desk costs associated with those admins spending their time doing these kind of print management tasks. You also look in the Citrix realm, how often are your Citrix admins dealing with certain print problems that could just be assigning a printer to a new user, and then if you've got to go in and modify policies or do different things along those lines. Well, if we can free up the Citrix admins' times from kind of these more mundane print assignment tasks, again, that's opportunity for your Citrix admins to be working on these other more, infrastructure and strategic problems as opposed to just kind of the day-to-day. So that kind of day-to-day stuff still has to happen, but we're looking to really maximize the efficiency of that so that that's not as big of a time spend for administrators, and then, of course, for the users, that they have access to the printing that they need. The printers show up ready to go. The print job is successful. They don't have to spend their time worrying about these kind of print problems. So at Tricerat, we did develop an ROI calculator. This is available on our website, www.tricerat.com. And so we take some of these industry averages and we ask you just a couple questions like, how many help desk tickets do you have per week? what are some of the costs of, or what are some of the time spent for admins on printing. And so just with a couple variables, we use these the industry averages from this research to compute both what we think is approximately your current spend, and then based on other data that we have, if we can reduce that with a solution, with a print management solution from Tricerat, then what the new spend could be, and then you can see in there the difference or the amount of money that can be saved. So in many cases, especially in some of these healthcare environments that can be quite large, there's really that large opportunity for cost savings in there. So let's really talk about the solutions and how we go about solving some of these problems or delivering these kind of efficiencies and the value adds that we're talking about. First, let's look at from the administrator perspective, really just an easy provisioning of printers. We're going to show the interface in just a minute, but it's a drag and drop interface for taking a printer, dragging it to a user or device. It's really that simple. This is a database-driven method with a user interface, as opposed to things like scripting or group policy objects that, as they scale up, can be very complicated, where we have a system here that even as it scales, it stays very easy to see what's going on and add new printers. So the time that it takes is greatly reduced. Driver management made simple. I hit on this in the beginning, especially when we look at like VDI images and other shared desktops like Citrix virtual desktops. To not have to manage print drivers in any of those scenarios is a real win, where you just manage the print driver in one location, which is usually the print server, but we'll show there's a few other places that can be done. But it's just one location to install the print driver, handle any updates, and then we'll take care of distributing those the printers out to the end user stations without having to modify virtual desktop images or anything else to get printers deployed in those scenarios. There are the performance benefits as far as optimized network utilization, login speeds. I mentioned a minute ago about group policy objects. It takes time to process those, or if you have to bring a driver down and install it, it takes time there. Where our login process really is as simple as a SQL database query to get the metadata about the printer, and then we have everything we need to build the printer in the session quickly and get the user into their application without delay. So some environments, really, it's just that time spend of, a doctor walking up to a desktop, delay is there, costs money. And so if we can reduce the amount of time it takes, even for just something simple like a login process, a lot of opportunity there. And I want to highlight, and again, this goes back to our Citrix partnership, its solutions really built for these kind of remote access platforms with Citrix virtual applications and desktops. From the beginning, it works that way. It does work on physical desktops, and so we often do have environments that have a combination or hybrid of physical and remote access applications. But the remote access applications is what really needs the attention here, to make sure that when you're talking VDI, when you're talking shared desktops, the solutions work properly in those scenarios. And from the beginning, we were built for that, and we've leveraged our partnership with Citrix to make sure that it operates as best as possible in those kind of Citrix environments. Now, if we look at the user interface, of course, an important thing to consider from an admin to make sure that your service to your users is as good as it can possibly be. And we are looking at that kind of consistency across printing. I mentioned the hybrid environments where you might have different platforms. To have one consistent printing interface for how they access and the printers that they get when they're using their applications. Again, it really just helps with that ease of use. Context aware is a big thing, and Matt will talk about this a little bit as far as when a doctor or a nurse walks up to a workstation or a thin client, to have the right printer based on where they are right now. And that might be the terminal they're using, it might be the IP, the network that they're on. We can make sure that the right printers are assigned to them and ready for them to use. Self-service scenarios, some customers use this to great effect, where if you can give permissions for certain printers out to users, and then they have an easy way to add those into their session quickly and without generating a help desk call, these are scenarios, again, that can derive cost savings for both the user and for the help desk staff. And part of that is we added a new feature in last year for maps, so you can actually bring up a map of a given floor or department and find a printer that way and add it into your session, again, quickly, and the user has everything they need to get that printer in there right away and keep one working. So the advantage that we bring, we talked about the driver management, which you'll see throughout the presentation, and really extending that existing infrastructure. It's important to us that we're not proposing that you rip out certain servers or add in new things. If you have a SQL Server in place, we can utilize that. If you have print servers, obviously with your virtual desktops or physical desktops or whatever they may be, we have the agents just to install onto those endpoints or the images. And so even in like a POC environment, it's easy to pick out just a few pieces of this, get it installed, see the advantages in your environment, and then expand out from there. It doesn't take a lot of modification. It'll layer on top of your environment, and really you'll see those enhancements right away. The performance and the user interface we'll demonstrate in a moment. And I mentioned the advanced print features before. I have a demonstration of that too, where the users still get their full interface even with this kind of virtualized printing. So that's kind of an overview of the print solutions. The main product that we're talking about here is Simplified Printing. That's our product name. And that's what brings the management from the database management. It has this centralized management console. And right now I'm going to demonstrate print server printing, and that's kind of what we'll talk about through the main part of the demo. But be it client printing, print server printing, direct IP, even mobile printing capabilities this year, all of that is managed from the central interface. So it's very easy to manage across a very diverse platform set from this the single management console. This is where we get the self-service capability, and the print servers all layer into this as well. So let me switch over real quick to a demo environment. And this here is the Simplified console. You see over on the right a print server that I've brought in with printers that were queried. It takes just a few minutes to get the information from those printers into the environment. I can see my Active Directory complete with all my OUs, groups, users. And then I also see an area for devices. I can group them. I can put IP ranges, device names. In a hospital environment where you're signing by client, that's where you do that. So I've picked my domain, I pick a printer that I want to assign, the Lexmark, I drag it over to admin assigned, and now everyone on the domain has that printer assignment. Now I'm going to query into my Active Directory and find this particular user group, my SE demo users. I'm going to grab my Xerox printer, drag it over, and I can see in the interface right away even the inheritance that I get. So anybody in the domain will get that Lexmark printer. Everyone who logs in that's a member of that user group will get both the Lexmark and the Xerox printer. Obviously, if I log in outside of that particular group, then I would just get that one Lexmark printer from the domain. So this is a very simple example, but you can see, just within a matter of a minute, we were able to assign a couple printers. And you can imagine that as you scale out in environments that even have thousands of printers and thousands of devices, you still have that easy drag and drop management and visibility of the printers that are assigned for users and, of course, devices down there as well. All right, let me flip over here to my Windows 10 desktop just for a quick look at what the user sees. So I'm going to start just by going to the control panel here. And you see I've got the printer for the Lexmark and the Xerox. These are assigned for my user. I'm going to look at the properties, and here's the advanced print features in action. So I got the Lexmark dialog. I can see finishing features. I can go over to print and hold and do pin code release. All of the functionality from this Lexmark is available to me here in that dialog. Similarly, let me show the printing preferences from the Xerox. And again, I get the Xerox dialog. I can choose the secure print, enter in the pin code. Everything that I can do from the native Xerox dialog is available here. Now let me show you real quick that on this particular VDI system, this is a Windows 10 virtual desktop that I've connected to, and I don't have that Lexmark or Xerox driver there. It was only that virtual screwdrivers driver. So again, my login was fast because everything I needed was already installed here on this virtual desktop to spin up, make the database call to build these two printers. But from a user perspective, I can open my application and still get full access to everything I need from these print drivers. So that's a quick overview of the products. If we could just go into some of the use cases that we find here. There's a few different scenarios that I just want to quickly talk about, both in how they use the product, but also the cost savings that they've realized based on what we talked about from the earlier research. So first, an insurance company in the Midwest U.S., they have more satellite offices, so not really a centralized location, but workers that move between locations, and not so much management out at these different spots. So it's all desktops. They have to manage the print drivers that they're getting for those locations. And if you remember in the Simplified console, there is an area where you can add based on location or the IP range. And so the different subnets, as users connect in from the different locations, they're going to get the right printers for those locations where they're working on that day. So again, the user experience is enhanced because they have what they need right at their fingertips and right away. Another example is a cloud application provider, a healthcare MSP. So they have their applications that's delivered through Citrix from the cloud out to their clients, but their clients are not managed by them. They're paying customers of their own, so they don't have direct management. They actually have our Screwdriver's client-based printing, so that they install the client on each end user workstation, and that when they connect in, the right printer is connected and built and ready to go, and then the print job works correctly and successfully each time. We do compression and encryption on those print jobs that we're transferring over the wire, so especially in these kind of cloud and WAN scenarios, we're minimizing the traffic and really making sure that security is taken care of as well, which of course in healthcare is a big concern for everybody. I forgot to mention, in that insurance case, they did a study before and after and found $360,000 per year in terms of employee and help desk time savings. This healthcare provider, they measured just in terms of total help desk calls and found a 30% reduction in help desk calls coming in from their customers after deploying the solution. So you can imagine not only their own costs, but also the perception of their service out to their customers was greatly enhanced. And then a hospital, this particular one in Texas, a hospital network with their security concerns and such, they have a mix of VDI and physical desktops. They had a team of 4 that were initially working on printing within their VDI system. After putting in Simplified Printing, really it's down to about part-time for one person. So really they've been able to take their admin staff and make sure that they're available to work on some of the other initiatives without really depending so much on printing. And they even bring on full wings of the hospital, importing new clients and printers really within just minutes. It's really greatly reduced the amount of time it takes to get these kind of printing deployed and their day-to-day operation. With that in mind, actually, I want to talk a little bit about another hospital system, CentralCare. So, Matt, if you want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned in the beginning about the number of clients you had, but why don't you talk a little bit about just kind of the infrastructure that you have set up there with VDI, but then also your printing and your print servers and those sorts of things?
Yeah, Tricerat gives us the ability to print across multiple sites and manage over 15 print servers and roughly around 2,000 printers. This software provides us day-to-day oversight of our devices and printing in our VDI environment. Having these printers available for the end users helps their workflow and reduce time and cost.
Good. So for like a user walking up to use, I think you have thin clients deployed there. Like what kind of is a normal user interaction when they walk up to one of the terminals that you're servicing?
The printer will be available. They don't have to sign in or anything. It's just available for them at all times.
So based on what thin client they walk up to, that's going to be, as soon as they log into a virtual desktop session from that thin client, in that session will be the printer that's assigned to that client. Is that right? Or that thin client? Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So I think earlier we showed, I demonstrated a drag and drop to a user, but in your setup, every assignment is made to a device name. Is that right?
Yes. We use host names. Yep.
Host names. So one of the things that we're checking from the Tricerat side is not just the user credentials in the Active Directory and such, but also where they're connecting from with a host name, with an IP range. And in fact, like a question came in here about that kind of context aware if you've got thousands of locations. Frequently in healthcare, we do see this kind of scenario where assignments are made directly to these devices by name. And you can do wildcards. So, if there's certain naming conventions, you can do it that way as well. You can also specify subnet ranges. So if it were different locations and defined with different VLANs or subnets or those sorts of things, you can list those out in the console there and assign based on that information too. So there's really a lot of flexibility, but I think you've really zeroed in on just by that host name. So a user walks up based on that terminal they're connecting from. They've got the printers, and it's all print server printing that you're doing. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so you have the print server agent deployed out to, I'm sorry, was it 15 print servers?
Yep, roughly around 15.
And that's all pulled into the Simplified console. And then, so actually my next question would be kind of like the day-to-day maintenance. Walk me through, let's say new thin clients need to be deployed or new printers come into the system. Kind of how do you do that day-to-day maintenance?
We break it down by building, floor, department, and printer queues. We then add the thin client host name to the print queue under the department.
So that's all in that Simplified console. Once you have it on the print server, that's then queried and read into the console. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you do that assignment method to add it into the console as well, right?
Correct.
So that kind of drag and drop method, about what would you say, is this a daily or, how frequently do you have to make these changes?
It's daily, probably roughly around 3 to 5 a day.
Okay. So one option is that kind of drag and drop, which compared to modifying a script or a policy object is certainly an optimized process. If it's a much larger environment, I do say we do have a import mechanism to kind of read from a CSV file. So again, whoever was asking about the, if you have thousands, if you're bringing in a lot at once, you can format that into a CSV list and kind of get that import. Ultimately, we're just formatting the data to get it into the database. But it's that, we can do it either way. If we have a mass amount, we can do it with that import tool. If it's a few a day, then it makes sense just to do this drag and drop, have the assignment done, and move on with it. How have you realized kind of that kind of efficiency in the management of printing versus what you had before?
The import option is great. It reduces time, of course. It's a lot quicker and easier for management.
Good, and I'll go from there into one of the things that we're working with Centricare on between Tricerat and Centricare. A lot of what we've shown here are values that you can realize today as far as those kind of efficiencies, but we're also working with healthcare partners like Centricare. As this year we're shipping our version 7 of the product, and one of the things that we're working on is really, especially in the healthcare environment, but other verticals as well, really helping drive those efficiency gains even more. So Matt, I know we've talked about certain automation things and reporting to really even reduce the time even further. One of the questions coming up actually is with like a PowerShell script, and so one of the automation things will be taking those same operations that we have in the console and being able to trigger them from outside processes or integrations with other applications or these sorts of things. And I know, Matt, you and I have talked about that as far as ways that we can take what's already been made more efficient, but even add a few extra layers to really help with that process.
Yes. Yep. Automation would definitely help us.
One other.
I currently have.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, one other question came in that I'll answer now about requirements for the thin clients, and I just want to hit on this now because in this section we're talking about those thin clients. As far as this particular scenario that we're talking about, there's really not a requirement for those thin clients because we don't have an agent running on them. You're connecting a thin client into the Citrix session, and then from there everything's happening on the back end. So So in the Citrix session, you have the agent that's building the print queues. On the print server, you have the agent that's managing the print traffic. So all of that's happening. All we're really doing from the client perspective is getting the name, the IP address, those type of things. So we have the metadata to build that device in the client session. Great. Anything else you want to add, Matt, before we move on to some of the other products?
No, I think we hit all the topics.
Good. A few other things. We've been very focused on print server printing, and that's intentional because in the healthcare space especially, that's certainly the main type of printing that we see, and we talked about how we layer on top of your existing infrastructure. But I do want to highlight some of the other methods that we have to print because sometimes they do come into play in healthcare as well. One is the Screwdriver's client-based printing, so mapping client printers from a Windows or a Mac client up into that Citrix session. And this is just using that virtual driver to get the information from the client print driver and then mapping whatever they have on the client into the remote session, available and ready for use. We have spent years, obviously, on our virtual driver, making it as good as possible, especially the print fidelity. We actually have our own print format specifically for this type of printing. These days, there's not as much that comes up with actual print problems, which is why we talk a lot about the time savings for management. But we still run across plenty of environments, especially in some of the more challenging healthcare environments that have applications, sometimes much older applications that have different print output types. And so we do still run into cases where maybe just the print job comes out incorrectly. And having this kind of client-based printing to fix those problems still is a valuable thing to be able to turn to if you run into that problem. We do also have a product we call Simplified Driver Management, which is actually direct IP printing. And so this is using the native drivers in the database instead of the virtual driver. And that's important in certain scenarios, such as remote environments that might not have a print server deployed, or environments that you want to eliminate certain print servers for a given reason, or if you need the traffic to stay local in a remote, like in a WAN scenario, if you don't want the traffic going back and forth. So there's a few infrastructure reasons why this comes into play. And the unique thing about Tricerat is that from that one interface, from that one Simplified console, I can manage both the virtual drivers from screwdrivers and print server printing and direct IP printing without a print server using Simplified Driver Management. So a very unique position we're in to be able to do both those types in a hybrid scenario when necessary, or of course you could pick one or the other based on your environment. I do want to briefly talk about mobile printing as well. We have had a separate product, we call it Simplified Printing TX, that does iOS and Android printing in a native way, so it presents as native printer types to those mobile platforms. This year we're integrating that into Simplified Printing, and so all of your enterprise printers that are available in the Simplified Printing or the Simplified console there will be available to deploy out to mobile devices as well. And this works both using mobile devices to connect in to Citrix apps in an iOS or Android interface, or using native apps on those mobile devices. So again, in any type of application scenario, local or hosted, we'll manage printing in a native and consistent way on those devices as well. Again, those are features that are coming with our version 7 product this year. And kind of as an overview, one of the things that we really say we do is this kind of full profile management within Citrix. Printing and the printers that a user gets is obviously a big piece of that profile management. We do also have a scanning product if you have imaging needs to get scanning into a remote Citrix application. And then we have a full featured user profile management solution too if you need to manage registry or file settings, again, to really further eliminate the need for scripting or GPOs, just like what we do for printing, but to do that kind of in that full user profile management space as well. So kind of a whole suite of products, obviously focused here on the print server printing, but I just wanted to give you a taste of kind of the full range of of different products within our product portfolio. So let me pause here and see. I know I answered a few questions kind of as we went, but if you have any other questions, please put them into the question window, and I'll take a look at what else we have in the question list now. Okay, one question in here is concerning licensing and how we license the products. We have a variety of different license methods, but generally we're going to do a per user license kind of right alongside your Citrix licensing. And so as you purchase Citrix seats for those kind of remote access, or the variety of users you have across Citrix or physical desktops, each user that's accessing those platforms needs a printing license. And one user license would apply even to both if they're both a physical and virtual user. So again, we just try to make that as simple as possible. There's a few questions on command line arguments and such. I think I touched on that earlier, just as far as additional items coming in V7 this year. And then there is a question about installation and kind of like a POC, which I was actually going to touch on in the last slide. But again, I talked earlier about how we layer onto an existing environment. So it is database driven, which usually there's a Microsoft SQL database already out there that we can utilize. We can work on a SQL Express if you want just a small standalone instance. And then we have agents that mainly go onto wherever you have a session that you want to manage the printers on. So that might be the image of your virtual desktop. It might be the terminal server for like a XenApp environment, a physical desktop. Wherever a user is going to log into and you want to build those print queues, that's what our product does. Is that agent will make sure that when the login happens, the user is able to have their print queues there and built and ready to go. The only other agent that I'd mention would be the print server agent. So if you're using print server printing, there's an agent that installs in your print server, and it can operate right alongside a regular Windows network printing. So especially in like a POC environment, you can have all this stuff installed side by side and see the advantage of the Tricerat without really, taking away any functionality from the existing production environment, and then you can transition over to that, once you're ready to do that. Good. I think that covers the questions.
Yeah, and these are the questions that we have got now. And if there are any more further questions, you could reach out to us. You could drop us an email at citrixready at citrix.com, and you could always expect a response from our side. And we will also share this video recording maybe in the next 24 hours, and you could have a view at it. So before we wrap up, Andrew, Matt, do you have a few words to convey to our audience?
Yeah, I think I'd just end it with our website, tricerat.com. Obviously, plenty of more information there, data sheets, case studies, these type of things. There is an option on there to schedule a demo. So we frequently do one-on-one demos where we can ask you about your environment. We can show you specifically the pieces that will apply to you, and so we can really kind of customize that kind of demo to what is useful to your environment. So please take advantage of that. And then there is a download option where you can download a free 30-day trial that's fully supported. It's got everything you need to do this on your own. Or, of course, we can have an engineer with a GoToMeeting and walk you through that. Generally, we need just like an hour meeting to get those core components in place where you can start building print queues and seeing printing working. So a very easy POC process. Again, I'd point you in that direction. We will be at HIMSS, the healthcare conference, next week. Sashi, is that booth 529?
Yeah, Andrew.
So booth 529 will be in the Citrix Ready Pavilion with our Citrix partners. So if you're planning to be there, you can either stop by or drop us an email. we can schedule a time to meet. I'll have a demonstration system there. So again, we can spend a few minutes and I can answer any questions or show you a little more interactive demo as far as what you might be interested in based on your needs in your healthcare environment. But I think that's the main takeaways I have. I'd certainly like to thank Matt Filippi and CentraCare for joining us today, and certainly Citrix Ready as well. Sashi, any other closing notes?
Oh, so I would like to thank you both, Andrew and Matt, for joining this webinar and walking us through the Tricerat products and how our mutual customers are benefiting with our joint solutions. So with that said, I thank everyone and have a wonderful day ahead. We conclude this webinar now. Have a good one.